The night was cold and merciless. The river roared beneath the steel bridge like an angry beast, swallowing everything in its path. A sleek black car stopped halfway across, its headlights slicing through the mist. Inside sat billionaire Richard Caldwell, one of the most powerful men in the city, bound and gagged, eyes wide with disbelief. The people he trusted most stood over him. His business partner, Martin Hayes, and his personal assistant, Laura. For years, Richard had built an empire of innovation, employing thousands, building schools, and funding hospitals. But tonight, all that goodwill meant nothing. Greed had no loyalty. "Sorry, Richard," Martin sneered, his breath fogging in the night air. "You built this empire, but you were too blind to see who really ran it." Laura averted her gaze, tears glistening in her eyes. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she whispered. But Martin's hand was firm. With one swift motion, he shoved Richard toward the edge. The billionaire tried to scream, but the cloth gag muffled his voice. He hit the freezing water with a deafening splash. The current pulled him under instantly. His lungs screamed for air as icy tendrils wrapped around his body. He was sinking. Fast. Miles downstream, a small wooden house sat near the bend of the river. Inside, Mary Jenkins, a black maid in her mid-40s, scrubbed the floor by the dim light of an oil lamp. Her back ached, her hands were raw, and her paycheck barely fed her and her grandson. Yet, her heart was pure gold, the kind that refused to harden, no matter how cruel life had been. Her husband had died years ago in a factory accident. Her only son was taken by gang violence. Now, she raised her 8-year-old grandson, Elijah, alone. As she aimed to quiet him, Elijah burst through the door. "Grandma, the river's going crazy again." "I heard something splash." Mary frowned. The river was fierce this time of year. "Stay inside, baby," she said, grabbing her lantern. "Don't you move from that chair." When she stepped outside, the cold wind bit through her thin shawl. The sound of rushing water was louder than ever, and then she saw it, something struggling near the edge of the current. At first, she thought it was a log. Then she saw the hand. "Oh, Lord," she gasped, dropping the lantern and running toward the bank. The man's body was tangled in branches, barely afloat. Mary didn't hesitate. She kicked off her shoes and plunged into the freezing river. The shock stole her breath, but she pushed forward, arms cutting through the black water. Every second counted. Her fingers brushed the man's jacket, heavy, expensive fabric, and she gripped it tightly. "Hold on," she shouted, even though he couldn't hear. With all her strength, she dragged him toward the shore, gasping and trembling. Her muscles burned, her skin numb, but she didn't stop until both of them collapsed on the muddy bank. He wasn't breathing. Mary's hands shook as she pressed on his chest. "Come on, sir. Come back to me," she pleaded, tears streaking her face. "Don't you dare die on me." She kept pressing, counting under her breath, praying between gasps. Then, a cough. The man sputtered, water spilling from his mouth. He was alive. Mary exhaled a shaky laugh of relief. "Thank you, Jesus." The man's eyes fluttered open, disoriented and afraid. "Where am I?" he rasped. "You're safe," Mary said softly. "You fell in the river. I pulled you out." He looked around, still dazed. The river. Martin. "Laura." His voice broke. "They tried to kill me." For the next few days, Mary nursed him back to health. She gave him soup, dried his clothes by the fire, and let him sleep on her late husband's cot. He didn't tell her who he really was. To her, he was just Mr. Reacher. But each night, he stared at the ceiling, thinking of the empire he had built, and how his alley greed had nearly taken it all away. Meanwhile, Elijah was fascinated by their guest. "Grandma says you came from the city," he said one morning. "Is it true they got cars that park themselves?" Richard smiled weakly. "They do, and lights that turn on just by talking to them." Elijah's eyes widened. "Wow, That's magic. No, son, Richard said gently. That's money. Mary shot him a look. Money ain't magic, she said. Kindness is. Her words cut deeper than she knew. A week later, Mary was hanging laundry when she saw black SUVs pull up on the dirt road. Men in suits stepped out, scanning the area. Richard appeared at the door, his face pale. They've found me. Who? Mary asked. The people who tried to kill me. They won't stop until I'm gone. Mary grabbed Elijah's hand and stood tall. Then we'll hide you. Ain't no one dying under my roof again. But before she could move, one of the men shouted, He's here. He came. Fast. Mary pushed Richard and Elijah behind the house and grabbed her late husband's old rifle, rusty but loaded. Don't you come any closer, she shouted, her voice trembling but fierce. The men hesitated, surprised by the sight of a small black woman standing between them and their billionaire target. Lady, one of them barked, you don't know who you're protecting. I don't care who he is, Mary said, raising the rifle. All I know is he's a man, and he's breathing because I pulled him from that river. You'll have to shoot me first. For a long, tense moment, no one moved. Then, sirens wailed in the distance. Police sirens. The men panicked, jumping back into their vehicles and speeding away. Richard fell to his knees, overwhelmed. You saved my life, twice. Mary lowered the rifle slowly. You'd do the same for me, she said softly. He shook his head. I wish I could say that was true. Days later, Richard was taken to the hospital under police protection. The truth came out quickly. His business partner and assistant had been arrested for attempted murder and embezzlement. News spread like wildfire. Billionaire thrown into river, saved by local Maid. Cameras swarmed Mary's small home, but she refused interviews. She didn't do it for fame. She did it because it was right. When Richard recovered fully, he returned to her house, not in a limousine, but in a pickup truck. He had cut his hair short, wearing simple clothes. Mary met him on the porch. You clean up nice for a dead man, she joked. He smiled. I wanted to see the woman who gave me my life back. He handed her a thick envelope. She frowned. What's this? A deed, he said, to this land, and a trust fund for Elijah's education. You'll never have to struggle like I did. Her eyes filled with tears. I can't take this. Yes, you can, he said firmly. You taught me something no amount of money ever could, that the richest man in the world is poor if he has got no soul. Mary placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. And you learned it the hard way, Mons? Boss said. Richard had rebuilt his company, but differently. Fair wages, community projects, scholarships for underprivileged children. The first was named after Mary. As for Mary, her house was repaired, her grandson enrolled in a good school, and her heart finally knew peace. One evening, as the sun set over the calm river, she sat on her porch and watched Elijah run through the field, laughter echoing through the air. Richard's car pulled up quietly. Ned air, holding 2 mugs of tea. You ever think about that night? He asked. Every time I hear the river, she replied. Makes me remember that goddamn tea always stopped the storm. Sometimes he just sends someone to pull you out of it. Richard nodded slowly. And sometimes, that someone is a maid with more courage than 1,000 billionaires. Mary chuckled softly. Don't you go flattering me, Mr. Coldwell. He smiled. I'm not. I'm just telling the truth. The river flowed gently before them now, calm and golden in the twilight. It had once tried to take a life, but in the end, it brought 2 souls together. And somewhere deep in that gentle current, it carried their story of betrayal, bravery, and the quiet strength of a woman whose compassion was worth more than all the billions in the world.